Hello, I am Rakibul Hassan presenting our paper How Do Native and Non-Native Listeners Differ? Investigation with Dominant Frequency Bands in Auditory Evoked Potential at this ICONIP 2023 conference. So let's start. Let's start with some preliminary background. So as we know, our human brain has remarkable capacity to perceive external stimuli. For example, now you are listening what I am saying. So how we can analyze this perception of our brain? So EEG signal, we can use this to characterize our neural activity patterns. So EEG captures cortical oscillatory activities that can be classified into evoked, induced, and ongoing responses. And as you might already noticed, our paper title has auditory evoked potentials. So let's talk about only auditory evoked potentials for now. So auditory evoked, that means the input should be audio signal. So EEG signal analysis in response to auditory stimuli. It's all about auditory evoked potentials. So auditory evoked potential, why do we choose it? So it's a valuable tool for scrutinizing the human auditory system that might be beneficial in hearing impairment investigation, also machine-brain interfaces. So our analysis is based on mathematics. So we choose three different metrics. One is the effective gain that comes from the gain term. That means the ratio of the output EEG response in our brain to the input audio stimuli. And a higher value is indicative of a stronger perception in response to the input sound stimuli. Another thing is phase locking value. So it quantifies the phase difference variability between those two signals. One is the input audio, another is the output EEG response in human brain. So phase locking value is a measurement of synchronicity. Another matrix which is weighted phase lag index, it's also similar to phase locking value, which is PLV. It assesses the asymmetry of the phase difference distribution between those two signals, the sound stimuli and the EEG. So let's talk about the materials and methods of this work. So we use publicly available dataset which has 242 minutes EEG recording from 20 subjects. Now that EEG was recorded at 200 Hz in 4 channels, and that recording has two different parts, significant parts. One is the resting state, where the participant first keeps their eyes open and then eyes closed for a few moments. And then the main important part, which is the auditory evoked potential response. So we wish to record the EEG corresponding to the input of auditory stimuli. So in those cases, we use, the dataset we use. So there are two devices, which is one is in-ear phone, another is bone conducting device. So there are three categories of song, native, non-native, and neutral. So two device and three types of songs. So in combination, there could be 6 different experimental conditions. For example, in-ear phone with native subject, in-ear phone with non-native subjects, in-ear phone with neutral music, and so on. So in this scenario, the EEG data was collected, and specifically our focus is on the native and non-native perspective. So as we're saying, like native and non-native, so here non-native is basically in this data set, non-Italian subjects listen to Italian songs, whereas Italian subjects listen to Arabic songs. So that becomes the non-native perspective. And as we also faced about the neutral term, so we might ask, someone might ask questions. So native, we understand, non-native, we understand. So what is neutral? So neutral is some sort of like relaxing or peaceful soundscape, just like maybe some instrumental musics or tone. So Let's talk about the process of finding dominant frequency bands. So, of course, we start with STFT, short-term Fourier transform on both signals, EEG and sounds, from where we calculate the time frequency distribution. And on that, we extract phase from the distribution map. And from that, we calculate the phase difference. So using that phase difference and also the time frequency distribution, we calculate the normalized effective gain, VLV, and WPLI. And please refer to the paper for all those mathematical definition, like how we actually calculate the PLV, effective gain, and WPLI. So after that, we average over all time points to obtain frequency dependent effective gain, PLV, and WPLI. And we also average the frequency dependent metrics over all trials for each condition. And then we plot them, or we just compare among non-native, native, then in-ear and bone conducting device cases. So another important part of this analysis is a downsampling factor. So the frequency resolution of STFT is dependent on the frequency resolution of FFT, because ultimately the STFT, short-term Fourier transform, is basically the Fourier transform on a smaller time window. So that's why the frequency resolution of STFT definitely depend on the resolution of FFT. Now, to achieve a desired frequency resolution, the sampling window length is increased to maintain an integer ratio, the ratio between the desired and the modified resolution. So, to calculate that ratio, which we are referring to as downsampling factor, we refer to this simpler algorithm here. So, it's quite simple. So we start with a downsampling factor of 1, and each time we calculate the sound time window length and easy time window length. And as long as these are not integers, we continuously increase the downsampling factor until we found an integer value of sound time window length and easy time window length. So let's talk about the results and analysis. So first, let's see the phase difference. So here, as you can see, the sound and easy response phase is plotted, and it's plotted for specifically conventional in-ear phones. So although we also plotted for bone conducting devices, and they results in quite similar trend. So here we are also only showing the graphs for conventional in-ear phones. Now, what do we see here? So as we can see, that there is a consistent lower phase value of EEG signal as compared to the sound stimuli. And the difference between them, that's the phase difference, they're consistently growing. So at the very first moment, at time 0, there is no phase difference, and at time 120 seconds, that means in about 2 minutes, as we can see, the phase difference is almost like 60. Okay, so let's move to our next slide, which is about the frequency dependent normalized effective gain. So again, here we are showing the graph for conventional in-ear phone, the bone conducting devices. We also found a similar trend. So this particular plot is about native and non-native listeners. Now, as you can see, the trend is also similar between the native and non-native scenario. So the two things are similar. First, native and non-native are similar. Then again, this whole thing is similar for similar between the conventional in-ear phone and the bone conducting devices. So as we can see here, there is significant changes as compared to throughout the whole time. As you can see, from 0 to 40, the frequency, the average effective gain is comparatively higher as compared to the other frequency range. So that's why we focus our analysis into this particular region. So our next thing, which is about finding dominant frequency band, so we focus on 0 to 40 hertz for that perspective. Okay, so let's see some dominant frequency bands here. So here, as we can see, this is the in-ear device, this is the bone conducting device, native case, non-native case. Now, one important aspect, as we can see, the maximum peak PLV here 0.070, where here it's 0.080. So in non-native cases, the maximum peak PLV is higher. Same for bone conducting devices, 0.076, 0.080. Another thing is, even if it is not maximum for other peak PLV cases, as you can see here, it's comparatively higher for non-native cases. As you can see, like 0.071, 0.068, 0.072, and so on. Here 0.066, 0.063. So as compared to the overall values, at most cases, the non-native peak PLV is higher. So what does it signify? So it can say that non-native subjects focus on a broader range of frequencies when listening to non-native songs. And as I also said earlier, that the difference between the devices are minimal. And even in this scenario, as you can see, that irrespective of the device, whether it's in-ear or bone conducting, the non-native has higher peak PLV. So there is a minimal impact of different playing devices. And even if we now see the dominant frequency by weighted phase log index, so one important aspect is for the top WPLI peak, as you can see 0.140 here, 0.158. So it's higher for non-native cases. So for top two peak WPLI, 0.140, and the second best is, I believe, 0.135 here, whereas it's 0.158, 0.151. But for other cases, the native peak WPLI is higher than non-native. For example, the other value like 0.124, 116, 103, whereas 0.096, 0.109. So we compared based on this different frequency bucket, and at most cases, we found that this native peak WPLI is higher. So what does it say? So it says that native subjects experience lower evoked potential with higher latency. So suggesting a more complex cognitive process with the native subjects. And non-native subject is just the opposite. It's a higher evoked potential with lower latency. And other things are pretty much same, like the minimal impact of playing devices here as well, as compared to our dominant frequency in PLV, which is phase locking value. So let's summarize the findings and this presentation. So first of all, how did we do? We analyze EEG and sound signals from participants where we have two types of listening device, in-ear phones and bone conducting device, and they listen to native songs and non-native songs. And also for the data collection perspective, there were neutral musics. Now, how did we do this? So we use time frequency analysis. So we calculate phase locking value, we calculate weighted phase log index, and then we find the dominant frequency band. So within 0 to 40 hertz range. And why 0 to 40 hertz? Because we see a significant change on that frequency region. And what did we find? So we found higher PLV but lower WPLI for non-native subjects across most subfrequencies. And we found non-native cases higher evoked potential with lower phase difference, that's the lower latency. And in native cases, it was lower evoked potential with higher latency or higher phase difference. And finally, of course, there was a limited impact of playing device choice on evoked potential level. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say.